hear the argument that these are right-wing libertarians, right? These are pro-business groups. They are fighting the lockdowns because big business is losing money, which is not the narrative they're putting out there, right? They're basically saying the lockdowns affect the working class the most. The billionaires are fine; they're profiting. But here's the thing: that is in isolation. They're looking at a number saying billionaires made this much money, right? And they did. That's a true fact. However, what they're not doing is comparing that to what they would have made had the lockdowns not have happened. So that's being disingenuous, I think, because the reality is big business did lose money by these lockdowns. They don't want lockdowns to come back again because they will lose more money, and they're willing to offer the working class up as tribute. They don't care if these folks get sick and die. So when the Harvard guy says it's a form of eugenics, social Darwinism, I agree with that, because we are not protecting the vast majority of Americans. We're allowing them to die for the plutonymy, more or less.
Look, when you allow this virus to spread and mutate, that's not protecting anybody.
It's not protecting anybody. That's the other thing. It's going to mutate again.
Mutating towards evasion of our vaccines and greater transmissibility.
That's right.
People say, "Oh, it's going to be mild. It's going to be mild. It's going to be mild." Well, hospitalizations are up, and that's a frightening trend. But back to the narratives that they're putting out. They are saying, oh, it hurt the working class and small businesses because look how many small businesses closed during this pandemic, and look how much money the billionaires made. But what they're not mentioning is that the lockdowns in the United States were only about a month long.
Right.
In about a 3-month period, there were weeks-long lockdowns put in place. You're telling me that the money that these companies that, by the way, happen to have large online marketplaces, the companies they point to that did really well are all companies that did business online. And they're saying that the result of lockdowns, as opposed to just people not wanting to go shop in person because they don't want to get infected. Like that's
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you can easily dismiss that argument. They also attribute lockdowns to a rise in global poverty, which is not really the case, because the head of the World Food Program noted that lockdowns are part of the equation, but so is the decline in foreign aid, the drop in tourism. I mean, that's really what affected the fossil fuel industry, is these travel restrictions. But there are a number of factors here, and putting it all on lockdowns and saying it's all because of the public health measures is just it's dishonest, it's unsupported. And they also blame it for the healthcare disruptions. Oh, people with cancer couldn't go and get their treatments, couldn't get their screenings. Well, first of all, you don't get, most people don't get screenings at a hospital. They get their screenings from their doctor, their primary care doctor, although a lot of Americans don't have a primary care physician. But they, this is also ridiculous, because what's really causing these disruptions are people getting COVID and overwhelming healthcare systems. I mean, it's not lockdown measures. By the way, doctors' offices weren't locked down.
They weren't locked down.
It's just that people are COVID. And if you want to cut that down, put in some public health, measures.
That's right. I agree with you there. The problem is we don't have things like Medicare for all. We should be fighting for that, not throwing the poor and working class out there as tribute, which is more or less what these guys are doing. I want to talk about the Koch brothers' previous forays into academics for a second, because I think it does matter. This isn't the first time the Koch brothers have tried to finance academia. They realize that if they can get their hands on this part of society, they're going to be able to control their narrative much more, which has always been a goal of Charles Koch, right? So a few years back, there were some scandals where they were offering funding for economic schools if they were given hiring, say, and what kind of professors were being hired by the school. This is an absolute affront to the independence of academia. It's frightful to me that any school would say yes to that. A few of them did. So it sounds like that they are making progress in this direction, and it's a very dangerous precedent, in my opinion, because you end up with things like what's going on at this Michigan school.
Also legal education as well.
Yeah.
They're trying to what they want to do is create, and this is the strategy. They want to promote grassroots activism, that grassroots activism. They want to establish an academic and intellectual framework for their ideas. They want to have a media apparatus for their ideas, and they want to have a central controlled body that sort of directs messaging. And they have that. They essentially have that. And this is just the latest iteration, as you said. This really came into play in the Tea Party movement, because they were fun.
Absolutely.
They did the same thing. They backed protests, same way they did against lockdowns in early 2020. The Koch network was promoting anti-lockdown protests in early 2020 for your viewers. They did this during the Tea Party movement. They were backing protests while they were having their think tanks and their academic institutions come out with intellectual cover for the ideas, these libertarian free market ideas. I mean, this is a coordinated propaganda. It should be illegal. What they're doing should be illegal.
It's dark money,
and it's only enabled by it's by Citizens United and Buckley versus Vallejo and all of this stuff. I'm not sure how you crack down on like their influence in the nonprofit world. I think or his influence in the nonprofit world. I don't know how you do that, but
even PBS shows are sponsored by him at this point.
It's really dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
They're trying to propagandize, and a lot of people are falling for it.
No, they absolutely are.
A lot of people are falling for it, and people that I used to like, and people that I think are well intentioned are falling for it. And it's like, if you think that the working class interests are really being represented by a network that has pushed right to work laws, that has pushed that is connected to pushes for child labor and sweatshops, you may want to rethink your positions. I mean,
I agree, especially if you think you're on the left.
It's so ridiculous. They are not your allies. They've never been your allies, and you might just be being misled, frankly. What we need
they
to
absolutely
do,
are.
What we should have been doing this entire time, is paying people money to stay home, paying hazard pay to essential workers, guaranteeing paid sick leave, providing Medicare for all, free healthcare coverage, all of these things that progressives have wanted over the years. This is the opportunity to do it. The pandemic is the opportunity to do it, to present a real alternative to neoliberalism. Because I have news for you. If the government were to do that, and if the government were to show people that, oh yeah, we can actually make your lives easier. We're not going to force you to risk your health for your income. We can make your life better. Then guess what happens to the free market, individualistic neoliberal narrative? It's undermined.